my guest today is Christian Jensen. Met Christian when he was starting my team Triumph, Wisconsin, which I was lucky to be a part of, and was really inspired by his servant leadership and ability to get people to buy into a mission and vision, and get people to go along with that. Sometimes, didn't always know what exactly they're getting into or where exactly they were going. I think that's the one of the qualities of a good leader is you don't always know the kind of the exact place you want to head, but you do know where you want to go. So Christian is currently the executive director for MS Run the US, another great organization, and really glad to have him on the show today. So thanks for joining.
Thank you, Adam. Pleasure.
Yeah. So let's start off with the first question. So what is one mistake that you have made? I know you probably, there's very few.
Yes, very few. Yeah, I had to really give a lot of thought to that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. And is this like yesterday? Is this like, so the thing, yeah, I mean, so the thing that came to mind, especially, and I was thinking about it when you were giving your intro there and talking about how we first met with my team Triumph, and I early on was just really focused on just driving at a fast speed, driving everything very, very quickly. And I had a vision for what I wanted to do, and to some degree, that was a asset, that was a strength of mine. But in many ways, it really that kind of hard-headedness was a bit of a bulldozer for people. And there were many times in the early stages, and I still do this now, hopefully a lot less, where I was definitely not as good on really taking feedback and listening to other people's opinions, especially when it was in conflict with my own, right? I think as a young leader, I was really much more sensitive. Hey, I'm really passionate about this thing. I feel really called to it. If you think I'm doing it wrong or you don't like how I'm doing it, I maybe didn't show that on the surface, but I definitely internalized that. And I would kind of maybe subconsciously or consciously shut people out. And so the big mistake was just really not really understanding the value of having people in your corner who are willing to say the hard things and listen to them. Because that's a rare kind of advisor or counselor to have. And but it's so valuable long term for growth. And so that's something that I've done a number of times over my life, my career, and I'm trying to get better at it. I'm trying to be that voice as well for other people.
Yeah. But I think that's also just, thinking about the theme of relatable in the podcast is there's, I've, and you and I both know that it's true from experience that, there's some people who want to tell you that you have to have it all figured out, or that as a leader, you need to know it all, or something along those lines. I'm not saying exactly the best way, but I think that's one of the big things that I've noticed too, is that, you don't always know it's good to have a goal and good to have a vision, but you don't need to have it all figured out, and nobody really does. And it's going to change along the way too.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. And I think as well, this is kind of related to what both of us said, is as a leader, I think you have this perception, or at least I did, that you have to come across a certain way to people. Like their viewpoint of you has to maintain this ego or this aura of what you want them to see. And often that's influenced by really not great sources. It's influenced by what you see on movies, or what you see on TV, like actual fictional people, not real life examples of great leaders who really it was hard for them, right? And and we also don't realize that part of good leadership is it's a process, and so we want to be Tony Robbins 30 years into his career, but
Yeah.
no one wants to be Tony Robbins on day 2,
Exactly. Yeah.
and so, but Tony Robbins will probably tell you, I mean, like, you got to go through that. Like, that's a gift to that process. So you can't replace time and learning, but you can try to pretend, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Definitely. That's great. Another question is, what is something that you struggle with that you think contradicts how success is defined by popular culture?
Hey, what's something I struggle with that I think contradicts how success is defined? Hmm. That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. Hmm. I gotta think about this. It's really good. Um, so what's just coming to mind is that um, success is it's so much more like a fight, I think, in some ways.
Mhm.
And it's a fight with yourself. It's a fight with the journey of it. And especially when you're a leader, like, we we think that, or we think we have to lead people in certain ways that are kind of linear, you
Mhm.
know, and it goes from here to here. It's this upward trend. And if we just get in a system, then it's going to work. But it never works that way, right? And I think,
Yeah.
we were talking earlier about AI, and this might change things. It might make things worse, but you really can't replace. You can't, even though I want to at times, like, just be like, you know what? I just want to, like, work with dogs and animals, and not have people that I lead,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people are just such a pain in the butt, sometimes, and me included. Like, I'm like, so
Yeah.
glad I don't lead myself, and so I think that it's really quite messy, and um on the I'm definitely not one that will I try to, I guess, and maybe falsely, but just try to have more of a linear relationship of both success in my life as well as relationship with those that I lead, and to have it all, kind of like we said in the first question, like, to have it all together, and just be willing to say, like, hey, I don't know, like, or what do you think? Can you do that? And and just involve them in ways, the people you lead and others around you that you lead, in ways
Mhm.
that just help. And it's not really necessarily about helping them feel like they're included, but more just
Mhm.
about respecting the fact that you just don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would, that's kind of what I would say is one thing that um really sticks out to me in that question.
Yeah. That's a great response. The next question is, were there any pivot points in your life that made you change how you define success? If so, is there one that stands out out to you?
Yeah, definitely. So I more recently have gone through some career changes. A few years ago, you had mentioned in the opener that about our experience leading and starting My Team Triumph, and it's a nonprofit that started from the ground up, which is really awesome and successful. And Um, well, in the beginning of that, when we started that, I mean, we being my wife and I,
Mhm.
um, it was something that was really driven by our faith. And one of the big parts of it was to grow it and hand it off.
Mhm.
And I knew that. I remembered that early on when we started it, and about about 12 years in to that, it was very clear that God was telling us now's the time.
Mhm.
And I really struggle with that because I had felt like, gosh, I kind of felt like there was maybe some unfinished business. Um, and I wanted to continue on with this. But at the same time, I noticed little signs of how I've been running the race for this organization and have had to put in the best of my ability what I can do. And then I've always kind of been a student of leadership, especially for nonprofits. And the nonprofit world is like most nonprofits really struggle, like the early phases. And if you think about it, like from a for-profit business standpoint, like nonprofits fail much more than for-profits do.
Mhm.
And they really struggle to get past that first leader, that startup leader, because you think about it in a for-profit, the identity of the for-profit is either the product or the service, or more so the change
Mhm.
that the business can have on potential customers, right? That's where kind of the message and the identity is put. And for nonprofits, what often happens in the early phases, they have to put some of that identity in the founder,
Yeah.
because not just in the impact, but in the founder, because the startup nonprofits require so much kind of time and energy equity from that leader, or those leaders who often are not getting compensated in order to
Mhm.
kind of get it over a certain hump. And but while that's good, there has to be a transition point at some point where either that leader needs to change the focus of the organization away from just them, or primarily them, to long-term sustainable focus, either more on impact or more on other people more broadly. And I learned about this, I noticed this, and I tried to be very conscious of that when we started my Team Triumph, but knew that at some point, in order for it to really be long-term successful, I would have to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And so before I kind of felt like God was telling me that, I had brought on someone that I felt like was really skilled and really smart. And as I started to work with him, I started to realize, gosh, there's some things that like I thought I was really smart at or really good at. This guy's a lot better than me.
Mhm.
And that was something that I really struggled with. And I'm like, hmm, but over time, I became more comfortable with it, and especially when God was saying, "Hey, you need to make a change here." That was something that I felt like gave me a lot of comfort, because I knew that if I were to groom him as my successor, that the organization would be in good hands.
Mhm.
And so that was certainly a struggle pivot point. Has it ended? No. I mean, that was the end of 2022, and I've gone through
Yeah.
some ups and downs, some changes in my career. I'm still trying to kind of figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I like saying that more because it makes me feel like I'm young, even though I'm not. Um, but that whole transition of leadership, especially, is something that like you really have a lot of ownership in, and giving someone trust over to take that over when it's been like your baby for such a long time
Yeah.
is something that was really, and is still really, really hard for me. But in that example, it's getting a lot easier, just because like I see the success of this person that succeeded me. I know he went through a roller coaster to get to where he is now over the last couple of years, and he's doing things that I would have never done. And he's establishing himself as a different leader, which is ultimately what is good, versus trying to just be how I was. right? And
Yeah.
just to like look at me as a model. He's understanding he needs to be himself and use his own skills and abilities to be the best that he can be.
Yeah, I think that's a critical point, and especially when you look at it, because I know this is something I've struggled with too. Is like you look at leaders that you admire and the people that you want to be like, and then you try and be like them, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't like you never worked out because it's like you can't lead by being someone else. It
Yeah,
just doesn't work out. So
yeah,
that's a really great point. Yeah.
yeah. And I think leadership succession planning is really interesting too. It's kind of
Mhm.
what I was talking about there, but um, it's really easy and I think especially in nonprofits where again the impact is really kind of like it's really easy for people to put their hearts into nonprofits.
Mhm.
And while that's a good thing, our hearts are we can easily be deceived, because we
Yeah.
tend to think like that's just like we're driven by emotion, right? And if we are
Mhm.
solely in our journey driven by emotion, then we can easily be kind of corruptible. We can easily
Mhm.
be swayed by things that are not true. We can have
Yeah.
blinders on to that truth and not accepting good counsel.
Mhm.
More recently in my journey, like I had some good, sometimes a good example is like what not to be like. And I've
Mhm.
witnessed some examples more recently in the last couple of years of like, oh, thank you for that example. Like,
Yeah.
that was really good lesson for me, to see
Mhm.
that and to learn about what not to be like.
Yeah. I think that's critical. I know that happened to me too. Like
Mm,
just looking at leaders some of the leaders, I should say, that I've worked for, um, and just how like learning from them what not to do. I think that's just as valuable as learning
mhm,
what to do as well. Because like I think going back to your point, it's the sometimes you're just blinded by what you think is right and what you think you're doing is right. And
mhm,
it's kind of my belief that I don't think like I think there are there are bad people out there, but there are not as many as we think there are. And there's people
mhm,
who think they're doing the right thing, but end up being really bad leaders. And kind of
mhm,
like in the term of not being able to lead, not bad people, but I think that's really a great point of like, what do I not want to do on
mhm.
that road to becoming successful or being a leader?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. So I think we kind of maybe already covered this one a little bit, or had some part of it, but this is the first one, friend. So it's all figuring it out. So what do you think most people get wrong about success?
Mhm. Um, I think the process. I think that really most people. I just think, uh, gosh, how you look at the journey and the process of it is is really, I think, key. You look at any successful person, and we were talking about Tony Robbins, how we
Mhm.
handle how we handle criticism, how we handle the failure in the process, how we handle setbacks. I mean, it's so important. It's such a it, being able to muster your focus in such a way that you don't ignore those things,
Mhm.
in other words the learnings of them, like you legitimately can look at those things and go, what should I learn from that, you know
Yeah.
uh as well as still pushing through it,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes like people either they're so hard-headed and they just go bulldozing through, and that kind of
Mhm.
kinetic energy is just so strong and they're so driven, and you can go a long way that way, like because
Yeah.
you just have work ethic, like
Mhm.
you just put in, there's that, what is it, the Will Smith saying, like, we'll get on a treadmill next to each other, like maybe it's David Goggins, right? And guess
Yeah.
what? You're stopping before I do. Like, I don't care,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that'll take you a long way, right? That really will.
Mhm.
Um, but there's a lot that you can miss out of that. And so the other side of that, of course, is someone that's just overly emotional
Mhm.
and has too much of a soft side and just gets really paralyzed by criticism or failures and off track. And I think that you need some of both of those things, because you have to have some introspective thought and honesty with yourself about things, that you can really capture what the true lesson of those moments are, of those experiences are. And I think
Yeah.
if you do that, that's like you go from like a level 7 to like an 8, 9, 10 leader,
Mhm.
that or someone that understands success. Is I mean, it's not, there's not a trend. It's
Yeah.
really up and down, and you got to
Mhm.
have both the sensitivity to plug into what you're learning is, as well as the drive to also keep moving forward when you have those experiences.
Yeah, that's really great. I feel the same way, and I've definitely felt that way too. And you know, I think I know what your opinion is, but feel free to share. If I think we're afraid to even say failure, I don't think you
Mhm.
were saying that in this, but like I don't. I yes, in the failure you can learn, but I don't really like the term that like I've never failed. I've just learned from it because I feel like that for me, it just tells people that like you can't, you shouldn't fail, and their failure is bad.
And
And it's like
yeah,
it's called like yeah, you failed, and you did something wrong. That's fine. It happens to everyone, and part of that growth is failure. But
yep,
like what you learn from it is more important than that, and acknowledging it is fine. But
yeah,
I just like that's one of my frustrations. So
100%, 100%. Because like,
yeah,
and if you have that mindset, like you're never gonna take a risk on anything,
yeah, yeah,
and you're never gonna take ownership over something.
hmm
You're always gonna be someone that goes, 6 of the 10 steps, you
hmm
know, and you get right up to that point where it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and you're not willing to go over the line and to
yeah,
potentially fail,
hmm
and so you have to be willing to do that, and that's super hard. It's scary,
yeah,
especially if there's money involved in your livelihood and other
mhm,
people. But being able to take those steps is really key.
yeah, definitely. Um, so who has been a positive influence in your life
Who's been a positive influence in my life? Hmm.
beyond Josh Groban, of course?
Yeah, he's number one. You're number two, right after you, buddy. Um, there've been so many. There've been so many. Um, Gosh. Um, so the person that comes to mind is right now is a gentleman who his name is Joe, and I actually hired him as an employee of my team Triumph years ago, and he did some work for us and did a good job. Was
Yeah,
with us for a short period of time, and then our lives kind of just our paths just diverged. And not because we didn't like each other. It's just, when you're not working with people and you're not spending the time with them, then things change.
hmm
More recently, he's come back into my life um, through some other nonprofit work that I've done, and really been put on a path where he was put in my path to a point that, like, it was clear that it went beyond the just the kind of council level and more of like a spiritual need that I have.
hmm
Um, I went through some role transitions in the last year, and in that moment, it was like, who do I turn to, right?
yeah,
Who's going to give me both some encouragement and some straight talk?
hmm
And he's a man of deep faith. He's a man that If our paths didn't come together, I would have
Mhm.
never thought of reaching out to him, but kind of God just brought him into my life, and he's been someone that really speaks honestly a prophetic word into me. Like he's one of those people that is like he knows just what I need to hear, and I've not talked to
Mhm.
him about it. Like I'm like he just
Yeah.
knows. He's in tune spiritually in it,
Mhm.
and he just knows like success is so much more about the spiritual connection than it is just like what we do on a daily basis. And so he'll send me stuff, or we'll get together for coffee, and I'm almost like not looking forward to it because he's going to say something that's like he cuts right through, and he's
Yeah.
like here's what you need to hear, or like God gave me this message and you got to hear it. I'm like, no, we don't need to talk about that. That's
No,
hard. That reveals something and I don't want to
just,
reveal.
just ignore it. Just ignore
Just
it.
ignore it, it'll go away. um
Exactly.
so for me, that kind of deep mentorship like relationship that Joe has been for me, I've had probably 4 or 5 of those types of people in my life. And oh, like I will never, like, we might not be talking, professional level in the next year, but I still stay in touch with those people. Like they
Mhm.
have been a true gift from God for me.
Mhm.
And there I will forever, call them a counselor, a close friend, a father like figure to me.
Yeah.
And those are rare. Those types of people are
Yeah.
so rare.
That's awesome. That's great. Um, what is one book that you think people should read? Whether we're kind of in the terms of looking at redefining success and what success looks like.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think it's the Bible. I mean, some
Yeah.
people might not like that message. Um, but I'm obviously a Christian. You can probably sense that,
Yeah.
and I'm showing my cards by saying that. But even if we just look at that book as a practical kind of a book that
Mhm.
has historical significance, which even if you're not a person of faith, you know the story of Jesus, and you know that the other characters that have been put into that book, that have
Mhm.
told the stories from the Old Testament to the New Testament. Um, it is in my opinion the most profound book to help you learn how to live your life. I mean, it's more than that, right? If you're a Christian,
Mhm.
you believe it's a book that tells you how to have life beyond life, right? But if you
Mhm.
just look at it from that standpoint, what are you going to learn? You're going to learn about you're going to learn about in the Old Testament is really like, here's what God's promise was to the world, and
Mhm.
and it was very prophetic. It was and what you see in the context of the Old Testament is so much conflict and so many people that are going against God, and they're trying to earn what God wants for
Mhm.
them, and it's just constant back and forth. And what happens in the New Testament, of course, with Jesus coming in, and that was written in the rest of the Bible, is a whole flipping of the script of, hey, you can't earn it, it's already for you, you have to
Mhm.
accept it. And and obviously what I'm referring to, of course, is is what Jesus was trying to do in earning salvation. But again, if you just look at it from the standpoint of like Jesus as a successful person or a leader,
Mhm.
here's a guy who lived for only 30 something years. He lived in a time
Mhm.
where there was no social media. People were just telling stories, right?
Yeah.
and and somehow he was able, in that very short time where he just had his ministry, he lived for 30 something years, but he only had his ministry for a very short period of time. He went
Mhm.
around and completely upended a governmental system, a religious system, and obviously we know the story of that. He was eventually killed for that. But not only
Mhm.
that, like he took a handful of dudes and said, "Hey, you're my bros, and I want to teach
Mhm.
you these things." And these are the things that are going to happen. I'm going to die, but I'm going to come back. And, of course, we probably know the story. I mean, he was crucified, he died. And in those 2 days before he rose again, like people were like, whoa, like what just happened? Like, was he really telling the truth and this and that? And some people think like, again, like he wasn't really risen from the dead. But
Yeah.
okay, you take these guys who then went out into the world, and all of them were sharing his message and trying to get people to come to Christ, and they all were killed. None of them were like,
Yeah.
hey, let's do this, and we're either going to get money for it, or we know it's really not true, but let's just do it anyway because we probably get some
Yeah.
fame and fortune. All of them were persecuted, their families were killed, this and this and this, and not one person has ever had a bigger influence on the change of the world than Jesus did. And it's
Yeah.
cataloged in the Bible. So again, if you look at the Bible from the standpoint of like, how am I to live my life? It speaks about submission or humility. It speaks about understanding your values and sticking to them, even in the face of persecution, and that gives us strength as we're going through our life. It teaches you that, hey, especially now, life is not about how many likes you get on your Instagram post.
Yeah.
Again, because people think Jesus, they think about Jesus as a lamb, they forget he was also described as a lion. Jesus was
Yeah.
going into places and he was upending tables. People hated him. That's why he killed him, of course.
Yeah.
And so, but he was so solid in his beliefs that he did not waver at all, and neither did the people that follow him. And he didn't do it in a dictatorial way. He did it in a way that was graceful. He did it in a way that was salt and light. And so, again, that's a little, Bible history story. But if you look at the Bible and you read it, even from the context of a self-help, self-improvement book, which is so much more to that. If you want to start with that kind of intention, go for it, but be open to what you're going to learn in the process.
Yeah.
It is the most life-changing book that's ever been written. It's why it's the best-selling book ever.
Yeah.
And it will totally change your mind, right? And I've read so many other books that, I've got a bunch of John Maxwell books. You and I have read some John Maxwell books, and John Maxwell's, a faith person as well. And so many of these other books really kind of take what is in the Bible and try to turn that into, they try to kind of recycle some of that message and turn it into something and to try to accelerate it or add more to it. When, that's the OG, man. That's it. And it's always there. And no matter what point of our life, I mean, there's times where, I'm not like, I got to read it every single day, but I know it's there. And I know, like, when I'm
Yeah.
struggling and I need something, I open that thing up and it speaks to every part of my life, whether I'm happy and things are going well and I need to be really, truly grateful and not prideful, or I'm down, man. And I have nothing left. It really speaks to every point of your life. And that's something for anyone and everyone. So 100% Bible.
Awesome. That's great.
How
What
about
is the
you, man?
worst advice?
I want to ask you,
Gosh,
what's
I
your
don't
book?
know. Um, I'm not sure. Like, I'd have to. That's a good question.
Or what have you read maybe more recently that jumps out to you?
Uh, I can't. Of course, I can't. Like, it's like there's a book it's about leadership and how. I can't remember the title of it, but he's wrote like this Laskrani or some. It's I can't remember. So not a great. But it's like about how to be an effective leader and how to get people on board,
Mm-hmm.
and just the fact that I think the biggest thing, if you're talking about leadership, I think the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing that people mistake is leaders need to talk a lot, and need to be very vocal. I think that is also something that's given
Mm-hmm.
to us in social media and in our culture, is that the
Mm-hmm.
leaders need to like be the wild ones in the group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, if you look at it, leaders spend a majority of their time listening. I think that was the biggest thing that came across to me is like listening to understand, listening to get people to know people more and what motivates them, what drives them. I think that's just like something that we don't hear enough about. And kind of going back to your first,
Yeah.
what we first talked about in the start of the podcast is like you don't know everything. Get people's advice, not just to include them, but because you don't know everything. And um, like trying to figure all that out is such a critical piece. I don't think a lot of people like is it just like it feels like it's very counterintuitive. And if you
Mm-hmm.
go back to the kind of the Bible too, it's like being a servant, being
Mm-hmm.
submissive, listening to people and not trying to be this person who always has to be the driver or the center of attention or the one who has it all figured out is such a critical piece that I don't think like has been like for me at least it is something like I've struggled with of feeling that burden of needing to be that
Mm-hmm.
the right person all the time and like having
Yeah.
everything fall on you. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm. That's good.
yeah,
That's good, man.
uh, yeah. So what is the worst advice you've been given about success?
Hmm. Hmm. Mm. Mm. I don't know if this was voiced to me or if it's more how it was implied or how I perceived that success was. Um, but that you're successful if people like you,
Oh yeah,
right? And I think especially as if you're a leader that has a lot of responsibility, there's not a lot that's talked about that you have to make, the really hard decisions and conversations that you've had to make
mm,
and difficult things that have consequences to other people. Um, and that is something that like like you think as being a leader, like, hey, it's really about like if people like how you're leading, then you're a good leader. And
yeah,
that is not the case, right?
mm,
Because ultimately your then allegiance is to many different people's viewpoints of how things should happen, and you
mm,
don't have a solid foundation. You're not either focused on the mission of the organization you're leading, the outcomes that you're responsible to. And if you are in those things, then you have to make really hard decisions. And of course, you have to try to do it with grace. You have to try to do it with empathy because it impacts people. But as you make those decisions, you're gonna have times that people are like, you're the worst.
yeah,
And like we talked about earlier, like how you deal with that is really important. You can't,
mm,
you can't get paralyzed by it. You also can't just ignore it. And you gotta try to find a way to absorb it in the right way, but also to keep moving forward. But I have found that the opposite is more true. And I don't know if it's like because I'm getting older and I'm like, I think like sometimes as people get older, they just genuinely don't care what people think of them. Um,
yeah,
but I tend to think like if I'm doing things that like genuinely, or I'm saying things that like there's people that are so plugged into especially culture are
mm,
like, I don't like that. I'm probably doing some right things. I'm
yeah,
probably I'm probably doing more right things than wrong things. In
yeah,
that case, right? Because especially nowadays, like people's definition of how life should be and success should be, it's purely influenced by the algorithm, right?
yeah,
And what you
mm,
see on social media, what you see other people doing, that's how it's influenced versus again, something that is immovable, unchangeable, and is driven by truth. And
yeah,
so I I that whole, again, people will, if people like you, then you're going to be successful. And like I said, I don't know if anyone told me that necessarily, but I think as a young leader, you're striving for that feedback, that positive kind of acknowledgement or confirmation. And
Hmm.
that gives you a chemical reaction in your body that
Yeah.
affirms what you did was right. And so naturally you want more of that. And so you
Hmm.
keep doing it, right? Versus trying to do things that are hard and go against it.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think that's a great point, and just I think everyone should keep in mind that it's not, you know, I think you and I have very similar views on kind of not we won't get into it, but like success and what it looks like from a culture standpoint, and like
Mhm.
especially on social media, and like just I can't watch one more person like in a private chat talking about how successful they are, or behind like some overly priced car, like, oh look at, I'm great. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like the ironic thing is that it's not measuring success by just purely money, but like
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who are billionaires who like don't care about what kind of car they drive, don't care about their like. I don't say they don't care, but they're not. It's not like there's not a thing they have to talk about all the time and have to be like popular and be an influencer.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's there's a lot of truth to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Are there any, like, I know kind of a wide open question, but like any kind of regrets or one regret that you have when it comes to your journey of looking at success and kind of your growth journey?
Mm. I've always felt like I'm not a regrets person. And
Yeah.
mistakes, yes. Regrets, I view those as different. Um, because I feel like mistakes you can learn from and grow from. Regrets, I think, it's just, to me, it feels like something that like you just get stopped in if you have like these regrets. And it's something
Yeah.
you just think about, and it just paralyzes you. It stops you. It keeps you
Yeah.
from moving forward. And so um, I try not to really
Mhm.
even allow those types of things to come in.
Mhm.
Mistakes, certainly,
Yeah.
mistakes, definitely. But I think if I and there have been times where I allow myself to kind of go down the regrets path, it really turns into like this kind of never-ending whirlpool rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because like I think if I go, hey, gosh, yeah, I really regret that. I really,
Mhm.
I'm not. If I am one that's number one grounded in what God's path is for me. Now, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be perfect in this, but if I'm continually grounding in that and continually saying, I'm gonna do my very best to follow what His plan is for me, and then I have regrets about that plan, then I'm doubting God. I'm doubting the source of my
Mhm.
strength, and that's not good. Because once you go down that rabbit hole, then you start to it's self-accelerating. It's downhill,
Yeah.
speed up, and
Mhm.
you lose the message. You lose the message, and so that's that's why I just don't do regrets. I just
Yeah.
really try not to. Um, and like I said, still gotta learn from mistakes. But there's nothing that I've been like. People have asked me because the whole my team triumph story, and
Mhm.
there have been many times where people are like, do you regret leaving? Do you regret handing that off?
Yeah.
And and 100% no. You know, do I miss it? Yeah, I miss it
Mhm.
all the time. Now, if someone were to say, hey, if we were offered to go back,
Mhm.
I'd still say no, but it's like no, it's not like no, like it's no,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's still love I have for it,
Uh-huh.
and I don't regret it, um, because I'm grateful I learned so much. I built such awesome relationships, this one included, and
Yeah.
if I miss one thing the most, and missing something is kind of in the family of regret. It's the people.
Yeah.
I genuinely still have love for it, but I miss spending time. I mean, it's an organization of a group of people that, we've had a number of these experiences together, when you were involved, of just doing really dumb things with great people. There's something to that I think I
Yeah.
need to write a book about, like, and I say it all the time. My favorite people are great people with dumb ideas. And there's really something to that, of saying, hey, let's go and do this thing. Like, we did the double Ironman thing up in
Yeah.
Door County. And we came away
Uh,
with so many great stories that we can smile. I think about this often.
yeah.
I noticed on my phone the other day,
Mhm.
one of the photos I took from that event popped up on
Uh-huh.
my phone as a memory. And I was just like, I was thinking about all the stories, right? And those are things that I miss the most, right?
Yeah.
And but if I were to view that as a regret, then um I would have very different emotions around that. I wouldn't miss it. I would have I would I would have bitterness
Yeah.
inside of me from it, you know. Um so no regrets.
That's great. I really like how you frame that. I think that's like, 'cause I've definitely noticed that too. Is that
Mm,
going down that rabbit hole, and it's never ending, and it's also, kind of helpless too. And it's not. I think that's a great mindset to get into.
mm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Kind of, so like two more questions. I guess of three more questions, two more on the schedule, and then one I'm just thinking about. So, what are your thoughts on the idea that people should chase their passion?
I think passion is a potentially a very good indicator of purpose. And I say potentially
Mm.
because sometimes our passion can be very influenced by outside things. Now, those outside things can also indicate true, it could spark the passion that guides you to a purpose. But like, take any superhero movie, go watch it, go watch the Avengers, and as
Mhm.
a 7-year-old boy watching Avengers, what do you want to do? You want to be a superhero. You're
Yeah,
passionate. You want to be Thor. You want to be Iron Man. You want to do this and that.
yeah,
You know, and so there's so many things I think that can influence our passions that we tend to kind of disconnect it from. If you're purposeful, purpose is passion with a destination, right?
yeah,
Passion on its own is just Mr. is like, I think of Ghostbusters, and
yeah,
they got the stream. It's just going all over the
yeah,
place. You don't have any control over it necessarily.
mhm,
And so, what I found is, like, sometimes people are like, they just have so much passion, they're never really they're never moving forward. Like, they go this way a lot, and then they kind of come
mhm,
back, and they go this way a lot and kind of come back, and they're
yeah,
just, they're all over the place. They have a lot of
uh,
energy, but it's never really moving forward in any sort of direction in their life. And what I have seen in some people that are really super passionate is they get to a point where they're like, what am I doing? Like,
yeah,
and so passion can be an indicator of purpose, but it requires someone to have real dedication and real drive towards whatever vision that leads to that. And it's right, because if it lasts, you know,
yeah,
passion often has a lot of energy, and then it
mhm,
dies.
yeah,
It looks like this, right? It goes
yeah,
up and down, really high
mhm,
waves and valleys, right? Purpose is kind of like that.
yeah,
And so I love passion. I mean, there are times where I'm like, boom, let's go. But I think
yeah,
if it doesn't come with any sort of plan, then it's purposeless. And so,
yeah,
I always encourage people, whether you're listening, to ask, where is this going? Like, what is
mhm,
the goal of that? Like, how does this tie into my values? What is the impact that this will have on the world? And what hurdles am I willing to overcome along this way, along the
Yeah.
journey to get there? Because if your passion will only take you over little bumps along the way, when you
Mhm.
know, hey, I mean, if something's really passionate about it and it has a big purpose, if you're not willing to climb mountains to get to
Yeah.
that end result, then then you're running on all simple carbs, my friend. You need,
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You need some protein, and you need some fiber, some complex.
Yeah.
You need some better fuel in your body
Yeah.
that will be more long-term sustainable. Um, so passion's great. It doesn't often sustain, and when we're young, we don't often think about that because we don't
Mhm.
realize, we think we're going to live forever, and we
Yeah.
think, oh, passion is where it's at, and I could just keep living with passion. But
Mhm.
eventually it does wear out. And you want to get to a point where if you've been directing that passion in a really powerful way, you're going to get to a point where you've not only you have this sense of purpose, but you've built something over time that has a lot of value, whether it is that kind of feeling of purposeness or belief, or even financially, you've built a business
Yeah.
and it has you've put the time and energy into it. And I'm sure you see this a lot with entrepreneurs. Like, I got this
Yeah.
passion for this service or this program and this product. And you could probably
Mhm.
tell right away from talking to them, that's not going to last. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and, but you could probably tell them the certain people when they get going on it, like, this is someone who's willing to put in the time. They're not getting paid for 5 years as they build this
Yeah.
business. They're putting in nights, weekends. They're driven.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to stop them. Like
Mhm.
that. That's when that's when awesome things happen. And you can't stop that type of person. And so you want to,
Yeah.
passion. You're not unstoppable with passion. You just
Yeah.
gotta, people come up against passionate people as opposition. All they gotta do is wait. They just gotta
Yeah.
let that person sprint in place for a few minutes, and then they're gonna
Uh-huh.
die. But if you have
Yeah.
someone that's like, look, I'm willing to, be the guy on the treadmill, that just
Yeah.
keeps going, then that's purpose.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think another way I think about it is like, does it make you feel fulfilled? I think there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
I can be passionate about, but it's not going to be at the end of the day. I think that ties into your idea of purpose too. Is it fulfilling, or is it just that you like to do? I think that's what
Right.
a lot of people think that that's what passion is about too. Is like, um, people just, and it's not always that way. It's not, you can't see passion about something and like it,
Right.
and build off
Yeah.
of that.
So in
Yeah.
that,
So
in
yeah,
that,
go ahead.
then my question
Yeah.
back to you then is like, how do you define fulfillment? Right? What is
Mm.
that? What is that? For people that are trying to seek that, what is fulfillment to you?
Yeah, I think it's something that on a like as a personal level. And so like one of the biggest things I feel about like fulfillment and the reason why I started this podcast is like, am I, and like to use a sports analogy, like am I moving the ball forward, or am I doing something to make the world a
Hmm.
better place or make a positive impact?
Hmm.
And I think that, kind of a side note, I think that is even harder to do now in today's culture where there's a lot of people who want to point out every flaw that you make, everything that's wrong with what you've done, rather than look at the positives.
Hmm.
Um, I can also be one of those people too, but so to your question is like, am I moving the ball down the field? Am I helping make the
Hmm.
world a better place? Am I improving it in some way? I think that really goes down to um, like your own personal belief system and what you want to
Hmm.
do. But I think it also goes down to the fact that it can't be it has to be an intrinsic force or something that is actually about you or about what your values or beliefs are, not about I want to make more money, I want to be more successful, or like that's a kind of a never ending chase of you don't know what you're going after and who you want to be. And it won't be successful. So I think like to answer the question, like what's real like what makes you feel good and what makes you feel like you've accomplished something and you've done something um that makes you happy,
Hmm.
makes you proud. I don't
Yeah.
know, what would you say? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I love it. And let me first say, like what I heard from you too in that, and I'm gonna say this because I know you,
Mhm.
is I think you know some of the best aspects of fulfillment is that you talk about make the world a better place. What you didn't say is so people see that I get credit for making the world a better place, right?
Yeah.
And you don't need to wear a crown. You don't need to have you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, you don't need to be like, yeah, I made the world a better place.
Yeah.
Like that kind of selflessness and being willing to, I think I recognize this a lot being a father. Like, I kind
Mhm.
of have this, like, being a father, a parent is so self-sacrificing and
Mhm.
dirty and snotty, and I mean, like, but the feeling I get, like from like seeing my daughter learn something or hearing
Uh-huh.
her sing, or I mean, like, I could sit
Yeah.
in the stands and I know, like, hey, I helped her learn those things, but just go,
Yeah.
I know that she has something, like, I have given something that has made her a better person, and
Mhm.
she's gaining recognition for that. She
Yeah.
is growing for that. She is getting stronger. So it's other focused. Um,
Yeah.
I see you do that all the time.
Well, thank you.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I love you. And that's
Yeah.
why, that's to me, like, if you can create something and then be like, I can stand in the back of the room while that thing is out in the world and people are enjoying it and celebrating it. And I can
Mhm.
just stand back there and just go,
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. And not have to be up on stage and people going, yay, look at you, you did it, right? But
Yeah.
just to be able to, like, because that's that long lasting uh kind of fulfillment that it's beyond just emotion. It's, again, beyond just passion.
Yeah.
It's something that you could take with you. And I think we've talked about this,
Mhm.
like I want to be one of those guys. One of my favorite movies is Secondhand Lions. You know what I'm talking
Yeah. Uh-huh.
about? And for those listening, go. There's tons of videos on YouTube about it, but it's short of it is it's this the story of this young kid who, I think he's an orphan. I think his parents die or they leave him or something. I can't remember that aspect
Yeah.
of it. But he ends up going to this house, and I think one of his relatives lives there because he has no other family. And it's this
Yeah.
older guy, and he's never really met him before. And he shows up, and in the house are these other dudes, and part of the friends of this one guy are these other older guys. And there's like
Mhm.
four of them, and they're all kind of crazy dudes on the surface, and he's scared of them. I mean, they've got, like, they're like, they've got guns, and they've got, like, crazy
Yeah.
stories and this and this and this. But these are
Uh-huh.
guys who, like, they're like Navy SEALs. They've been there
Yeah.
and done that. Or they're like Indiana Jones types of dudes.
Uh-huh.
They've, like, explored. They've done crazy, awesome things. But they're at the point in their life where they can, like, sit on their porch
Yeah.
with all of these experiences as old men in a rocking chair, maybe smoking a cigar, and just go, yeah. That
Yeah.
was
Uh-huh.
that was awesome. That was a great, and they could tell stories. And
Mhm.
it's fulfillment where you have both this, like, gratitude for what has taken place and your part in it, and that overpowers any sort of kind of sadness that you have that it wasn't happening anymore. But that it has lifted culture, it has lifted the world, it has brought someone
Yeah.
into a better place because you've taught them something and you've left something in them that's like a legacy piece. And it's a great movie. It's hilarious. It's funny.
Yeah.
These guys have done things, and they kind of they're the dudes that have been there, done that, and they
Yeah.
have some awesome stories. And that's kind of like, I would love to be at a point in my life where I'm one of those dudes. I could just sit on my front
Yeah.
porch or be that guy who's sitting in his garage with his garage open, he's got some like
Yeah.
old time music playing in the background, just watching people drive by his neighborhood, but he's got good
Yeah.
stories.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
really like that. Yeah. So kind of one of the final questions, which is second to last question, is how do you stay grounded?
Yeah. I think it goes back to my faith, but it's an intentional unplug and plug in. Nowadays, I get really easily sucked into things that waste my time, like social media, or one of the
Yeah.
things I'm great. We don't have cable TV
Yeah.
or really any streaming services here, which I'm like so grateful for. So like one of the most toxic things you could do is just be sucked into like news, like
Yeah.
especially nowadays, where like I mean, if you step out, you can't if you're out of it, you realize, man, all this is
Yeah.
so agenda driven and toxic, and you see it from all sides, not one side, not
Yeah.
two sides, all sides. You see
Yeah.
what they're trying to
Yeah.
do, and that has a and I'm around some people that like are really plugged into that, and I'm going, that's not how I want to be.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of being grounded, right? Because you're
Mhm.
just whatever they say, you're going, and then it's
Yeah.
like who was I talking to? Like I was talking to someone who was like, we were talking about the whole Ukraine thing, which is a big deal, right? It's a big
Yeah.
deal. It's really, really important. It's really important kind
Mhm.
of thing going on. People are dying. I'm not trying to minimize it, at all by saying what I'm going to say, but they get so worked up about what this guy did or that gal did or this guy didn't do this good, to the point that they are like have anxiety attacks over it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are probably never going to go to Ukraine in your lifetime, nor less meet someone
Uh-huh.
that's ever been there. And
Yeah.
why are you sacrificing so much of your time and your energy and your joy to this type of thing?
Yeah.
And so, social media, like unplug from that shit.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if we can
Yeah.
swear on your podcast here, buddy, but
Oh.
you got to
Yeah.
be really intentional about what you feed your mind and your spirit, and
Yeah.
often the things that really are toxic to your heart come in through your eyes and your ears,
Mhm.
and it can mask itself as just very innocent kind of information, or it's no big deal, or even in a positive, seemingly positive way, like
Yeah.
this is a really important thing that you need to know about. But when you realize how much you lose, how much time you lose, I mean, that alone,
Yeah.
right? How much time
Yeah.
people waste on these types of things in a week, in a day, let alone how
Mhm.
much joy it sucks. Because like you go into other
Yeah.
interactions. I mean, and I have family members that we have very different kind of political views on things. And I'm not
Yeah.
perfect in this way because I catch myself all the time kind of getting fired
Yeah.
up. And 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 I'm like, why did I, okay, it's
Yeah.
seriously like it's not like we can be passionate about things and not hate each other, right? And
Yeah.
so part of the answer to that question that you asked me is really being conscious of what are the negative things I'm taking in that are
Mhm.
going to shift my foundation, are going to
Yeah.
try to slowly degrade what keeps me grounded, right? Because
Mhm.
it's never something big. It's usually something slow that just slowly eats away at it. And so,
Yeah.
one, be aware of that. In terms of what keeps me grounded, again, it's my faith, it's my family, it's the people around me that
Mhm.
I know that they're encouraging and they're uplifting, and they're gonna give me a good word that's just gonna help me, and I try to do the same to them.
Yeah.
And just focus on those things as much as possible. Like the best way, you've probably seen that like example of like, you know, if you've got a cup that
Mhm.
is, it's mixed with, some dirt and some
Yeah.
oil and it's got some water in it. The best way to really cleanse that is just keep pouring clean water into that. Just keep,
Yeah.
and it's going to overflow and it's going to spill all over the place. But after time, that water that was murky and dirty and filthy, eventually it's going to be just so cleansed by the inflow of good things in your life and the lack of even input in the bad things, because you don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm doing things right in my life, it's really being conscious of shutting out the things that really suck my time, mess with my heart, and really filling it with things that are encouraging, positive, and supportive, that really propel me to the good things.
Yeah. I like that a lot. That's great. Thanks
How
so
about you?
much. So kind of I think I would agree with you. I think staying off uh, news and not watching, being consumed by news is such a critical piece. I mean, I was thinking about it when you're talking. It's like there's a four. And I've thought about it before too. Like there's a 4 o'clock news, a 5 o'clock news, 5:30 news, a 6 o'clock news,
Oh man,
8 o'clock news, a 9 o'clock news, a 10 o'clock news. And like
yeah.
I'm not going to say what site, like what channel it was, but like there was one that was like I don't know the exact years, but it's like like breaking news, the Titanic sunk so many years ago. I'm like, how is that breaking news? Like this is really not like anything like, oh wow. I think into your point is like it's all built in to get your attention and to make you watch longer
Right.
and like for a number of reasons. But like they don't like I don't want to overgeneralize, but in like in the big picture, they really don't care like about
Mm.
how it affects people. They
Yeah.
care about what's going to drive revenue for them.
Yeah.
But I think like
Advertisers.
yeah, and like for me, my faith is a big thing, and
Yeah.
also just like the purpose behind why I'm doing something, like the reason and the fulfillment, and like go back to your point, like the purpose is like, am I spending my time on the right things, or am I just
Hmm.
wasting my time on things that don't matter?
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing, and like there's a quote by Jerry Seinfeld, and I just gonna paraphrase it a little bit, but it's like
Mm.
his thought is, maybe we don't work. Maybe it's not the fact that we work too much, but we work too much on the wrong thing,
Mm.
and just like getting caught up in that stuff, that crap doesn't matter. And it's just complete bullshit. Is like, why do you want to? And I think the news is one of those, and
Yeah.
I don't think either one of us is going like we're informed of what's going on, but it's not like
Mm.
don't be so focused on that because it's out of your control. I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why like you shouldn't do that, because then like your brain pays attention to
Mm.
patterns, and you notice it like here's
Yeah.
all these things I have no control over and I can't do anything about. And it's like you're at
Yeah.
home worrying about everything and not doing anything. It's like, why not go out and do something like either
Mhm.
immediate or worldwide and it can make a difference. So to answer
Yeah.
your question, like my faith, my
Yeah.
purpose, and then just keeping the negative things out of
Yeah.
the out of my mind, because I think that's such a critical thing.
Yeah, that's good. And I think I've seen you do this. I've done it many times, like not being afraid to once in a while detoxify, you know.
Yeah,
Like I've seen you do it around social media. I've done the same thing where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna I'm gonna unplug from that for a month,
yeah,
you know,
mhm,
and and to have some times where you're just going to completely shut things out. And when you do that, you have to kind of reconcile the initial truly kind of addictive nature of it, because like your brain's going to like crave it, and
yeah,
you will come to terms with like, wow, like I really am addicted to
yeah,
that. But also, afterward, I guarantee almost every time I have done this, like I come out of that going, man, I feel so much better. And I
hmm
hear people talking about these things that are like on the news or on social media, and I just kind of like, meh, like like,
yeah,
like, what is it? It doesn't matter. Like,
hmm
like gotta let
yeah,
that go. So,
hmm
100%, man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. To wrap up the interview, wrap up the podcast is. some final advice on when you look at the purpose of relatable. I'll go through it really quick. Just any advice that you have that you want to leave people with. So really, the purpose is to help everyday people. And I should use that in quotes because I think there's, it's hard to define what everyday people look like.
Mhm.
See that success is within reach by sharing honest educational stories from accomplished individuals, highlighting the challenges, decisions, and growth in a way that removes intimidation, which is a hard word to say, intimidating to say, and builds confidence. What would you like? Any parting advice that you'd like to give, share?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it kind of goes back to what we were talking about more recently is really really pay attention and plug into people, things, sources that are truly foundational, immovable. If you don't have if you find yourself constantly being kind of in the wind, and
Mhm.
your passions are just getting pushed over and over, like you
Yeah.
get excited about one thing and you get drawn away, you get excited about another thing, get drawn away. Like, you gotta stop and go, what is my foundation as a human
Mhm.
being? Like, what is in my core that's really really important? Because if
Yeah.
you don't want to figure that out later in life, because
Yeah.
you're going to have a lot of regrets, right? We talk about
Mhm.
regret. If you figure that out now, then you're going to be on mission. So,
Mhm.
if you're trying to be successful, be missional. And to be missional
Yeah.
means you've got a foundation and you've got a direction that you're going.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people
Mhm.
to explore that. And, that comes with surrounding yourself with the right people, all the things we said, getting rid of the things that are toxic,
Mhm.
feeding in things that are gonna, make you ask hard questions about yourself, you know,
Mhm.
and your values, and because that's the stuff that matters. And the cool thing is, I
Mhm.
believe, is you can have really fake leaders that have a
Mhm.
lot of followers. Like, there's all
Yeah.
sorts of examples of really loved leaders who were really fake,
Yeah.
right? Um, but the people that were truly, truly genuine, these are the people who, they don't have to try to be something and try to win
Yeah.
people over. They know who they're made to be. Nothing is both more freeing as a leader when you're in that place, as well as puts you in tune with, your purpose and sense of fulfillment, because then you don't have to pretend. You're not trying
Yeah.
to just win people over. You're being yourself, and that's very attractive to people who are
Yeah.
also seeking the same thing. So
Mhm.
find that foundation, whatever that is.
Yeah. So that's really helpful. That's great. I think that's a great way to close it. So, want to thank you again for chatting and taking time out. So I really appreciate it.
My
That
pleasure, man.
concludes it. So, yeah, perfect. I'm gonna stop recording and then.